Parent of killers, what is your story? My son killed a family friend when he was 17. The family friend had been molesting him from 7 to 12 before finding other boys. When he was 17, he ran across this man who propositioned him for sex and my son lost it. He stabbed him in the heart with a knife and he had a heart attack and died. He did 8 years for manslaughter. His life is a wreck. He got out and wanted to go to college and get a job. College was too much for him because he was around kids his age who were more concerned about what to do on Saturday night, whereas he was worried about his parole officer showing up with 8 armed cops at our house. He completed his degree in psychology and still couldn't find a job. He couldn't even find a job at organizations that help ex-convicts because he couldn't pass a background check. He started to be unhinged and committed suicide. And he died believing that he did something wrong and to have deserved the life that he got. I was 3. My grandparents had full custody of me. My dad was a heavy drug user and alcoholic. From my understanding my mom was to an extent. But my dad was way worse. My mom also had a lot of health issues. I'm not sure all the details of her health. She was bipolar for sure. And was on several heavy meds which she often let my dad use. She had a disability with one of her hands. But she was a very beautiful and kind woman. She was the kind of person, if she had $10 and went to the store everyone was gonna get something when she got home. My dad killed her one night. Not sure the story of that. All I know is that he chopped her up partly. Couldn't fully dismember her, but he tried. I think he got her head partly off and an arm and made a big gash from hip to hip. He hid her in our trailer closet for 3 days. My grandpa eventually suspected that had happened and called the cops. According to neighbors, the next day he came over and drank beer and watched football and didn't even seem to be a changed person at all. I'm now 21. My dad is gonna be serving at least another 8 to 10 years in prison. He had the chance for parole after 15 years and was denied. But he could serve his whole life. Up until I was 18. I couldn't visit him. I didn't really like to. But I did it to make my family happy. I didn't know how to feel about him. And still don't, to be honest. I had my visitation rights taken away at 18. Since I was a victim of his crimes. I could have it overturned. But not really wanting to, honestly. He only calls when he wants money. Gets well over $1,000 a year from my grandma. I was lied and told it was basically an accidental death until I googled my dad's name when I was 11. I didn't speak to him for over a year, and it was right before Christmas too. My first memory is seeing my mum's grey blue closed casket. Obligatory, not my kid, but my stepdad's kid, which we will call Jay. He went on a murder spree. He wanted to kill all his family members. He successfully killed both his maternal and fraternal grandfathers. He got caught midway through the murder spree cause he left his great aunt alive and tied up. She got free after he left and called the police, and his mom, who was next on the list. Jay stole his great aunt's phone so he could pretend to be her and meet up with his mom. He ended up meeting the police instead. He had tried going to other relatives' homes, but it was in the middle of the workday and people weren't home. Otherwise he would have killed more before getting caught. He got 100 years with 0 chances of parole. The judge said the sentence was symbolic because by the time it's over, there won't be anyone left alive to remember his heinous acts. Edit. I forgot to mention how it's impacted my stepdad. He turned into an alcoholic 4 years afterwards. He did everything he could to help his son be a good person and feels like he failed. He blames himself. His son Jay is criminally insane and had shown that countless times over the course of his life. Shoot, Jay tried to burn down his school when he was in kindergarten. He had already gone to jail for attempted murder up in Alaska too. Only in the last year or two really has my stepdad gotten any better. He's finally getting close again with his daughter, and the drinking has slowed some in part due to my mom. I just wish he would go to therapy and get proper help. It's unlike him to seek that kind of treatment though, cause he is a very private person and that goes against his nature. Edit 2. Meant paternal, not fraternal. Oops. My uncle raped and murdered his disabled daughter and tried to frame someone else so he could collect insurance money. He got away with it for almost 20 years. One day, I get a phone call from my dad saying that we should expect the family name in the news and why. Edit. My uncle was not my child, and as such this was off topic. She was mid-teens and developmentally disabled. He tried to frame a supposed hitchhiker serial killer in the 80s. Tried to follow the same patterns. He was caught via a cold case study. Early tests had some of his DNA on her, but protection was used during the rape, and he had a passable alibi at the time. When some of the DNA was retested, they found more clues linking my uncle to the murder, and after checking with said alibi, the person who gave it confessed that they lied. The moment the police came for my uncle, he cried and thanked them for catching him. He admitted the whole thing right away, and said that he couldn't handle her anymore, took out the life insurance policy, and did as he did. He is in jail for life, and getting at least part of what he deserves there. He has been disowned literally every member of the family, and 2 of his nephews have changed at least part of their name. That was from his. My great aunt killed her husband years and years ago. Shot him and burned the house down after years of being abused by him. From what I know, she was convicted, but didn't get jail time. Instead she came in, and worked in the prison kitchen, so she could go home, and take care of their kids every day. Most of her kids ended up involved in drugs and the like, so my part of the family has never interacted with them, and we don't really talk about it. My brother killed his girlfriend shortly after their son was born. He still won't tell us why he did it, but he did confess, and has never once denied doing it. He's in prison until 2046 last I checked. We always knew growing up that he'd end up in legal trouble eventually, but not as early, and it did. Not a parent, but I was briefly neighbors with a family who had a son that ended up killing them because he got addicted to heroin and the parents wouldn't give him any money for his habit. Not a parent, but one of my cousins is a killer. Dude was a teenager when, for some unknown reason, he decided to kill his parents and siblings. I can't say his name, so let's call him John. It was early morning, around 3, and the father was out working the graveyard shift at the one gas station in town. John had sat awake all night to make sure everyone was sound asleep. He took a shotgun that he got for his birthday and crept down the hall to his little brother and sister's room to make sure they were asleep. Satisfied, he ventured into his mother's room, put the gun against her temple, and shot her. The blast woke up his siblings, and, turning around, he shot his brother as he ran out of his room. After making sure he was dead, he found his sister hiding in the closet, and killed her too. To complete his mad fantasy, John dragged the bodies one by one into the living room, and left them in an unceremonious pile. He then called his dad, crying on the phone saying the house had been robbed. His dad left work and drove as fast as he could to get home and see if his family was safe. As he burst through the front door, John shot him almost point blank in the chest, and he died soon after. Around 7:30 that same morning, he called the police to report the murders. According to family legend, the cops found him sitting on the couch, watching cartoons and eating a bowl of cereal, still bloody from moving the bodies. It's been a few years now, and the only reason he's given for doing it was that it just felt like the right thing to do. My mom came home one day super drunk. She had recently got divorced for the 4th time, and she was pissed about it. I had a friend sleeping at my house that night. I think it was 3 AM when I heard a scream coming from my friend downstairs. I ran down the stairs as fast as I could into the living room. At first I didn't know where she was, but when I looked into the kitchen I saw my mom hold a knife with blood on. I saw my friend lay dead on the kitchen floor with blood everywhere. My mom had stabbed her in the stomach about 21 times and she died. It still traumatizes me 12 years later. My mom got lifetime, and I haven't spoken to her since that night. Edit. Thank you all for the love and support. I really appreciate it. I've seen some comments writing that this is fake, but it is certainly not fake. Not a parent of one, but one of my close friend's brother killed his parents back in 2013. We were in class working on a project when 2 police officers walked in and called on my friend to step out. I thought he got busted for having weed or stealing something from the cafeteria. Nope. He got news that his older brother had murdered his parents after a heated argument between them. I didn't read about it out of respect for my friend, but recently when I googled it, I found out that he murdered his dad with a blunt object and strangled his mom when she was asleep. He then rolled the bodies in blankets, stuffed them in his car, and drove it in the middle of nowhere. The neighbors called the police after hearing suspicious noises, and when they came to arrest him, they said he had a smile on his face. I met him once at a party, and to me, he seemed like a pretty chill back dude, so hearing that shit made me feel uneasy. Child of possibly 2 killers. My father was known as the Riverside Strangler throughout our town. He has been in prison since I was 2 years old. I'm 31 now. His ex-wife wrote a book about him. My sister and I believe that our mother was involved based off of some of her more psychotic hobbies, like throwing unopened cans of pop at prostitutes. My father went away for murder several women, many of which were prostitutes. My uncle shot and killed his wife in a Burger King parking lot after he caught her cheating on him.